Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
What's going on, everyone? It is Jeranism, back with another live video for you today. Thank you for joining me. I do greatly appreciate it. First off, a shout out to all my patrons who actually are the ones that allow me to do this. It's what I love to do, and without them, it would be quite tough to have the time to make the videos I do, so thank you a million times over. Also, a shout out to the chat. Thank you for joining me. And lastly, a shout out to a few people who sent me some things this week. Donita for the postcard. Ja wrote a very kind letter from Texas. I also got a postcard from Beijing from Zhaolin. Thank you very much. That's awesome. I couldn't tell you how cool that is to see, but I couldn't tell you if it's a male or female, but it was awesome to get the postcard. And from Kenneth in California, who asked how it is that all these things were so-called proven 500 years ago and that nothing has been debunked with the tools of today. So, Kenneth, I will respond to that in a letter, but I think a lot has changed in 500 years in the other sciences that people can actually test and disprove. But when it comes to space, no. It's quite a bit different. Let me get this screen up for you guys. Yeah, quite a bit different. In order for their beliefs to be correct, for example, the stars must be trillions of miles away at a minimum. For their model to be right, Venus must be the size of Earth, etc., because all of their science has been built upon that. So they can't go and change it now, and you know, everyone needs it to be true. So again, thanks for the letters, and the postcard was very cool. Would love to see more of those. So anyway, thank you very much. Let's get to today's show. We will try and keep it about an hour. And, I forgot one other thing. I saw some comments about where did the final 3 hours of my live show go from the other day. And the answer is that I trimmed it. And before people say, wait, you made a video about SpaceX saying that what they did was wrong. And that's nowhere near correct. I follow YouTube rules that say you must, or you can, trim your ending or beginning of a live stream if you have less than 100,000 views. I had 4,000. SpaceX not only trimmed when they had 11 million views, but they rearranged out of place. It seemed like an error. It seemed to be out of place, and then they put it where it should have gone in the video. And that, what they did, isn't even possible for any other YouTube channel to do. So it's nothing even close to what I did. But I pulled the final 3 hours because listening back, some of it sounded hateful to me, and that's the opposite reason that I have a channel. So I don't like people that spread hate, and so if that's on my channel, then I don't feel like I'm doing what I want to do here, and that's not to spread hate. So the things I could have said could have been worded differently, and next time they will be, and I can say those things, in a way that can better get my point across without all the hate. So it's gone. You didn't miss anything I haven't said before, but before I said it without the added hateful tone. So if I offended anyone, I'm sorry. I want my channel to be about discussions, observations, etc., and that's what we'll be doing today. So joining me today is Shane, better known in the Flat Earth community as Ranty Flat Earth. Ranty, are you there?
I am here, Jaren. How are you?
Beautiful. Thank you. Doing well. Appreciate that. All right. And what's this? We already got a super chat. Awesome. Thank you very much, Josh Horn. Appreciate that. And welcome to the show, Ranty. Can you tell everybody about yourself, what you've been doing for, I think it's been now 2 years, right? And where people can find your work? Yeah, go ahead.
Right, well, yeah, you can find my work at Ranty Flat Earth. It's actually in the title, so you can search me. I'm the only one, so it's pretty easy to find. I've been doing this for 2 years now. First, conspiracies interest me, obviously. 9/11, chemtrails, all that. And I suppose it is like a rabbit hole, really. And at the end of the rabbit hole, you find Flat Earth. And that's what brought me here. 2 years, though. 2 years I've been doing this.
Right, yeah. And you've been doing some amazing observations. And then don't you have a place for people to support you as well if they like the work that you're doing?
Oh, yes, I do. I set up a Patreon some 4 or 5 months ago now. So I am actually on there as well. I do actually have a few patrons already, which is great because it actually helps me to go and put fuel in the car to do these observations, and obviously it's nice to get a bit back from the community, considering the amount of work that we actually do put into to do this kind of thing. So if you want to find me on Patreon, it's Ranty Flat Earth again.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. And, one thing I wanted to bring up real quick, and I'm sure Ranty deals with this all the time. I know he does. First off, is like nothing in the world seems to work the way you think. I think people need to recognize that. You look around and nothing seems to make sense, but we see that the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. So we should be smart enough to recognize that the way it's set up is not for our benefit. The other thing is people need to recognize is that people will always support what they want to hear, and then they'll despise what they don't want to hear. And this is something that we see heavily in the flat Earth versus globe Earth debate. For example, one just quick example of that is, let's see here. So this, I'm going to transfer over here. This is a video that somebody did just recently, and the channel is Flat Earth Awakening. And just an example of something. So everybody should know, and I think they do know, that in the globe Earth model, when you see the sun, say it's sitting right over the horizon and it's setting or something, according to the heliocentric model, you don't actually see the sun, that the sun is really behind the horizon, but due to the curvature of the atmosphere, that you're actually seeing that sun in an apparent position. So the thing is about globe earthers is they'll accept that because it matches their believies. It matches what they need to have happen in their globe earth paradigm, their globe earth model. The difference is when we come along and say, oh, in this particular case, what you're looking at here on the screen, people have had a problem with this Flat Earth clock app because for here where I'm showing you, oops, you can't see me do it there. I have to do it. Hey, you can't see it. So here, when you see the sun setting off in this direction, you'll have Wolfie and other people saying the sun sets right to left, and therefore your clock is wrong. And we say, well, no, you're looking at an apparent sun, and they'll just say, no, that's not true. So again, this is just pointing out, and if you kind of watch this video, you'll see exactly what we're talking about. Somebody put this little personal atmospheric dome here, and you can see that when the, let me get a little bit further. Okay, so watch this part here. As the sun comes around and sets right to left, like we said, watch what happens in this personal dome. And this is exactly what we've been saying the whole time. And here it is when it zooms in. You see that sun going off to the right, but watch, here goes the sun off to the right, but in our dome, it sets right to left. It's exactly what we've been saying the whole time. You'll see it, he's rewinding it back. There goes the sun. So even though the sun is crossing your head and going off left to right, in your personal dome, you see it go right to left. We've been saying that the whole time. They'll decline it, and the reason for that is because it goes against everything that they believe in. We have to remember that, I mean, most of these guys are atheists, so flat Earth is the absolute worst thing that they could ever hear. It drives them bananas. So we should expect that when I do a video showing that we can see a mountain, Mount St. Jacinto from 123 miles, that there'll be videos out there saying Jaren's a liar, Jaren got the math wrong, everything, because they can't accept that observation. So it just should be accepted or expected that we're going to have people that can't quite understand the things that we're saying. And even though we say, oh, what you see is actually an apparent sun, they say, oh, no, we see the real sun. But when it comes to their beliefs about the sun being above the horizon, they say, no, that's an apparent sun. So they'll allow an apparent sun as long as it backs up their globe belief, their globe fantasy. So just wanted to point that out. And now what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to Ranty, who's going to show us some observations here. Go ahead, Ranty. I think that you should be on.
Okay, 1 second. Let me get...
Thank you for the super chats, Flat Earth Vegans, the couple of the year. Got that Flatty Award. It says, let's see how many super chats we can give Jaren today. Thank you very much, Flat Earth Vegans. You guys are awesome. Great sitting across the table from you and eating dinner over there in Denver. And Josh Horn, I already said thank you. And Topher Townsend, thank you very much for that $1. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Ranty.
Okay, well, the very first observation I ever did with a flat earther, I don't know if you probably do know him, Anthony Riley.
Yep.
Yep.
I know.
So what had happened is, this is way back. We're going back here to 0, 1, like 140 images in. I'd only had the camera that few that little amount of time. Mm-hmm. And I went to Hoylake with Anthony because apparently he'd been having a bit of grief with the Globers and saying that he'd seen Blackpool Tower, etc., etc. So we went there, and this is just one of the images that we captured. For instance, there we have in this right-hand corner over here, this ball here is the mirror ball. The mirror ball is situated approximately 25 feet or so above the seawall. So on this particular time, it was only 60 feet above actual sea level at this time. The observer height was approximately 8 feet above sea level. And yeah, I mean, that should not have been seen on the globe. And essentially, this was my first observation that validated this kind of theory that, okay, there might be something to this flat Earth kind of thing. So I just thought I'd share that because it had a lot of controversy. This, obviously, this image here, this is obviously of the big one, and you can clearly see it's the big one. You can see the structure; it goes up, it goes down. You've even got the backside of it where it turns around there. And it's when we were arguing about the mirror ball, they were conveniently forgetting to talk about this, which this shouldn't have been seen either on their model.
What's the what's the distance of this observation again?
29.3 miles it was.
Wow. And from what height?
I was about 8 feet above actual sea level when I took this image.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's definitely one of those observations that, and this is why I encourage people to go out and observe the world that you live in.
Yeah, and well, this is what actually drew me into because essentially I had a channel that was doing chemtrails and things, and I actually heard about flat Earth. And within 2 weeks, I'd bought a P900 and was doing some observations of Blackpool, but I did it from Southport. And Anthony Riley saw a video and he thought it was a hit piece against his Blackpool observation. Then he realised that actually I was a flat earther, and it was through him that he actually sort of dragged me into doing these observations. And then, you get the bug and you carry on, and you just want to carry on and do more and more. And that's essentially what I've been doing. As I get more subscribers, you tend to put more work in. And it's getting to the point now where I'm essentially doing this, I would say, at least 6 or 8 hours every day. So...
Awesome. Yeah. And if anybody hasn't done so yet, if you look in the description of this video is a link to Ranty's channel. Let's get him some more subs. That's one of the things I also want to do with this channel. As I gain more subs, I want to help out people that aren't getting the views that they should, that are doing the observations that maybe some people can't do. Even that I can't do. Now I live 2.5 hours from the beach, whereas I used to be, close to there. So anybody who's doing observations, that's what I want to use this for. So we can get him some subs. Check out his channel. He's got so much on there. But go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. Keep going.
No worries, Jaron. So here we had an observation where I went to look at Blackpool from a different location. So this time I went the other way. So I drove to this beauty spot and I had to walk out onto the beach. Got down to sea level, set the camera up and did a live stream, I think, from there. Yeah, I did a live stream. And this is what I filmed. I don't want to put any music on. And essentially what we're looking at here is, this is obviously Blackpool Tower, and underneath it we have the Tower Ballroom. So the Tower Ballroom isn't lit up, but you can see where the Tower Ballroom actually is, because that's where the lights stop on the tower. Mm-hmm. Now the curve calcs say, believe it or not, the curve calcs say that 120 feet should be missing. Now then, 120 feet, there we have the bottom of the towers. Right, so that's where this is where the curve should be, and then we have all these lights. This is the Blackpool illuminations that are going along here. A little bit later in the video, towards the back end of it, this part here, where we're seeing all these flashy lights and stuff. This is in front of the tower on the seawall, right at the seawall, and this was where the illuminations were being switched on, and they had a concert going on there. So this was the actual switch on, the concert switch on. And it's the lowest lights that we could ever see anyway, so it's possible that we could have even seen lower than that if there'd been lights there. But essentially, this was the concert going off. And this was only about 40 feet above actual sea level at the time. Again, curve calc should have been 120 feet beyond the curvature of the Earth.
All right, beautiful. Yep.
So yeah, there's been plenty of observations at night, both back and forth from Barrow. But I've got a lot. Honestly, I've got nearly 3 terabytes worth of data.
Yeah.
So
and now you're up to a P1000, correct?
I am with a P1000. Yeah. Thank you very much to Nathan Oakley, 1980. Is his channel, and what he did. I was showing all my work on his channel. Mm-hmm. So it was, it was like he did me a favor. He suggested that, I should get a P1000, ask if people would help donate to do that. So we did what was called a Ranty-a-thon, and did it through GoFundMe. And within 24 hours, people had put enough money into the GoFundMe so that I could go and buy myself a P1000. and it was absolutely sensational. So I've been using the P1000 more recently.
Awesome. Have you looked into it all or thought about it all doing any of this infrared or?
Well, yeah, I have, and I will do. I will modify my P900 to do that.
Oh, good. You still have it. I didn't know if you still had it. Just so everybody knows, that David Weiss was actually trying to get his P1000 done, and I just wanted to see if he selected a good spectrum for that before I sent mine in. But LifePixel was the company we've been talking about, but they actually sent it back and said that they cannot do an infrared modification to a P1000. So if anybody knows of anyone who has done that, or please leave a comment on this video. Otherwise, it looks like the P900 is the one that will be able to get done. So yeah, I'm glad you still have your P900.
Oh yes, still got that. Still take it with me now and then, but obviously the P1000 just absolutely kills it for its. It films in 4K. It's got a bigger zoom. Just everything about it's so much better. It's a heavier camera though.
Yeah. Oh man, once you have the P1000 and you grab the P900 again, it feels like a little point and shoot.
I'll show you a few images here. So on this particular day, this is the first time that I ever decided to lower my camera as low as I thought I could go, because I hadn't actually thought of putting my hands in the sand or actually just even making a little mound for my camera and then putting it on the sand right next to the water. I hadn't thought of that at this time. But essentially, I'd put my camera down to about a foot. And what we're looking across here is 18.3 miles to a town in the distance called Barrow-in-Furness. Now, obviously, this is shore to shore. What we have here is a little sand dune in the foreground. Behind the buildings are behind it. We have all the buildings of Barrow, the rooftops. None of these should be seen, right? This is just a simple fact that none of these buildings should be seen at all. And then when we come across here and we look over on this side, we've got different buildings here. We've got Barrow Town Hall. We have, this is a medical centre over here. Again, none of this should be seen. And it was the first time I said that I'd lowered my camera to a foot to do this. Mm-hmm. And it blew me away. The fact that I could get lower and apparently, avoid all the atmospheric conditions that were going on, because I had trouble seeing through the atmosphere. I didn't understand what this inferior mirage was, I'll be honest, back then. And it was always in the way. And of course, nobody wanted to go near talking about that kind of thing because it's globe proof, People, this is what the Globers would say. It's globe proof. The inferior mirage is globe proof. And, I essentially got ostracized from the flat earth community for talking about inferior mirages.
No, I think it's
until about now,
Yeah, it's very important for people to see that there is an obstruction, and at times it varies, and that's the problem with it being just called globe proof, is that it changes. That picture Ranty just had up now, if he would go back to that location, say in the summer, Ranty, would that observation change?
Oh, absolutely. Right. I can show you in here is it this one? Hang on, no, it must be the one before that then. So just bear with me.
No problem.
This is the compression. That's for that. You're just going to have to wait just a second here, Jaren.
No problem at all.
Here we go. So this is floaty land versus a clear day. Right. So obviously here we have two images of the same location. So you can still make out the tower and the hill and everything like that. This is actually taken from a video, and I have both videos on my channel. I'm in exactly the same location for both observations, same height, the tide was at the same height, everything was exactly the same. The only difference was we had this blockage going on one day, which was a massive inferior mirage. Obviously, on another day, when we had much clearer weather, we could see this little truck down at the bottom. If you can see there's a little truck down here, and that's really on the beach. That is on the beach. Mm-hmm. Now, the curve calcs, believe it or not, say that where this inferior mirage is splitting here, that is where the curvature should have started. Mm-hmm. That's where the curvature should have started. So on a clear day, we just see it without any blockage, and when we got this inferior mirage, we've got this blockage. And as I say, in the past, the Globers would say that this was proof that this was floating and being loomed up.
Right. Yeah, if people remember
and
the Salton Sea observation that National Geographic did and went and called it a globe proof, it's the same thing, that they went on a hot day to the hottest lake that there is, the Salton Sea, where it's 120 degrees every day and it sits basically in a bowl, and then they waited till they could see some reflective material that they raised up on balloons. But if you look at the top image that Ranty was showing there, if you waited until you could see this reflective material, yeah, you would have to wait until it came up over that haze, up into that dirty air, if you want to call it that. But if you did it on a day like below, where it's a little bit more crisp or cool, then you would see it earlier. So these are the kind of things where if you go out and try and prove that the Earth is curved by saying, well, here's the obstruction, or you always hear globers say, well, how come any of the buildings in Chicago are covered if you're looking across Lake Michigan? But what they don't pay attention to is that you pull out the curve calculator, which is based on the 24,901 mile circumference, that all the buildings should be gone. So they'll just say, well, yeah, but some of the buildings are blocked, therefore it must be blocked by some sort of water curvature, that there's some hump of water between us and the buildings, and it's just not true. And I'm sure Ranty will tell you about that. But yeah, go ahead, continue.
Okay, so on this particular day, obviously, we have this post in the foreground. Now, this post is only 4 miles away, and the buildings in the background are some 18.3, 18.4 miles away. So we have a reference here. We have this post in the foreground that's unmovable. It's not it's fixed to the floor. It doesn't go anywhere. And I've been using this as a reference to see whether or not there's been any looming going on. So because we've been asking for proof of looming and the globers have never brought it forth, I thought, well, let's do the other route then, and let's try and see if looming does happen, or let's disprove it. So when we look at this observation here, and we had this really crisp day, and obviously I pan across to the right in a moment, and this is where we saw the buildings of the truck. There's the truck. So we had just a nice day. I'm going to let me slow it down a sec. There we go. So there's the land that was floating in the image before. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the post and just get an idea of where it is in relation to the building behind. If you can see just where it is in relation to the building behind. Mm-hmm. And let's go to the next video. So that should be not that one. So it'll be the one after that. So this is the one with the inferior mirage. Look at this massive inferior mirage going on. There's the side of the mountain. And what I'll do in a moment is I'll pan across and I'll be looking to see whether or not that post has moved. And what do you know? The post in relation to the building behind hasn't moved. So this building behind hasn't been loomed up. Mm-hmm. So when we're looking over to the left here and we're seeing this inferior mirage and we're seeing no extra land, there's no land going further on here, right? We're not seeing any land.
No, it looks like the sky.
It looks just like the sky because the inferior mirage mirrors the sky above. And what that will have an effect of doing is actually lowering the ceiling height, well, the height of the horizon. Because if you look over to the left here, you can't see anything other than sky and the sea, but we know that there's land here.
Right.
We know there's land there, and we know there's water and land further beyond that. But the sky is blocking that out, so it's foreshortening the horizon.
Right, and then you'll have globe believers that'll go out there with a theodolite or something, and they'll say, "Well, look, I look off in the distance, and the ocean has dropped off the level. Therefore, the Earth is curved." But this is proof right here that that's not what's happening. Go ahead.
Here's the spire that I was looking at before, and there's a part of the hump. Obviously, on this particular day, the inferior mirage is actually even higher because we're seeing less of the hump, and we're not even quite seeing all of this spire thing. But let me just show you on paint, because I do actually have it up. So here I've taken a screenshot of both, and what we're going to be looking at here is the relationship between the post and this piece of black, this black area behind it.
Right. And
it's in exactly the same position. There's been no looming at all on this day. So when they say, so you've got a clear day and you've got an unclear day. And when they were saying that it was looming before, so floaty land was looming, well, this kind of disproves that because we can use this as a reference point in the foreground. So if these buildings were being loomed at any point, we would see that the buildings would be higher or lower, or something would be happening, and they're not.
totally agree. I think people, if you don't know what he means by looming, that's the globe explanation for these things, that they think the reason we're seeing so far is because for some reason these things are being lifted up, they're being loomed from behind the horizon and are being shown to you above the horizon. But Ranty just showed you here that on those 2 different days, it's the same. So it's the water and everything below it or everything below that we are seeing the change on.
Yeah, I think it's the atmosphere. I think the atmosphere is actually the blockage, because if we compare the two, what we can see here is we can see in the distance we have these houses that are actually near the shoreline, and this is an estuary, believe it or not. This light blue area here is actually an estuary, so it's connected to the ocean, and it flows in. So we have the sand dune in the foreground, then we have the estuary, then we have some houses in the background. So on the good day when we could see it, this is what we could see all that. And on the poor day, when we had this inferior mirage, we just had blockage.
Absolutely.
So we can't see it. So the blockage has to be atmospheric. It can't be the water. The water was the same on both days. There was no real tide swell or anything on both days. Both of these videos are actually on my channel. The tides were in the same position. I was in exactly the same place, exactly the same height. Everything, and I show it all on my videos because that's what I make sure I do. I'll turn around, I'll show you exactly where I am, where I filmed from, so there can be no doubt as to where I was when I filmed these. And you can see for yourself that this is actually atmospheric blockage. It's
right.
Not curvature.
And to prove that too, you could get up higher and then you get above that atmospheric blockage and you can see further. And globe Earth believers will take that and again call that globe proof. They'll say, well, no, you're getting up higher and you're seeing further on the ball, which in my opinion is ridiculous.
Indeed. And essentially I've been going on recently about this this inferior mirage, and when I first started talking about it, I think it was some months ago when Bob asked me to come on Globebusters, and I showed it there, and I was talking about it, and it didn't get a great welcome. And like I say, when I say that you feel like you're being ostracized, it wasn't from Bob or anything like that, but I just didn't see that that I was getting a lot of support from other flat earthers, apart from those that had been following my work on Nathan's. And then you got the globers that are saying, oh, he's a Poe and he's a glober in disguise and all this. Well, no, because just because I'm showing blockage doesn't mean that I'm a glober. I'm showing blockage to try and understand it,
right.
And I'm showing blockage to try and figure it out. And because I've figured it out and I'm now taking blockage and inferior mirage away from them as a battering tool to hit the flat earthers with, they can no longer argue that an inferior mirage is where the curve starts from the work that I've done this year.
Right.
And they hate that. So they would rather say that I'm just... So what they've gone into this denial stage now where they're just saying that I'm a globe earther in disguise and I'll do the best globe proofs, etc., etc., etc. No, I show what you used to think was globe proofs. That was 2018. This is 2019 now, and our argument has evolved. We've moved on. We've moved past that, and we've taken the inferior mirage away from you. It's no longer your little toy. It's now flat Earth proofs.
Yeah, absolutely, because we're showing it as it actually is and showing that it changes, and that unless you're on the globe and you believe that the water is rising and lowering at huge amounts, look at the difference between those two pictures. I don't think the water's rising hundreds of feet. And then also, I know you're going to show us a little bit of, this is what I wanted to see here, this compression stuff. Go ahead.
Oh, I'll get to the compression in one sec. Yeah, sure. I just wanted to talk about this boat. Now, this boat essentially is about 80 feet to the top. And I was filming to Barrow, and I was down on the, probably around about 6 feet above sea level. And I was doing a time lapse of the buildings of Barrow, showing how the inferior mirage worked, etc. And this boat sneaked in underneath the inferior mirage. And I didn't even see it. And when I went back and I figured out how far away it was only about 8 miles away.
Right, I've seen that video, which is just amazing, because when you're down low, the boat is gone. You can't see it at all. Yeah. It
was absolutely hidden. And what I do is I run down and I start to look for it. And I'm looking, and I will find, there it is. So here we have, this is the boat from when I'm actually, this is when I'm holding it at 12 feet above sea level. And I hadn't even gone down to as low as where I'd done the time lapse from. But even on here, you can see the massive inferior mirage running through the middle. Mm-hmm. This boat is nearer, and you can tell it's an angular inferior mirage, because this boat that's nearer, this small boat, and the boat in the background, which is much further away, the inferior mirage is much lower on this one relative to the one behind, which is much higher. So if you put a line through it, what I'll do, I'll take a screenshot of this and just show you exactly what I mean by that. So just bear with me.
Yeah, so the globe explanation for that, must be what they think, that when you're down low, there's a hump of water that is between you and the boat. Right? That's what they believe. So that this boat is actually sitting behind the water, and there's a mound of water between you and the boat. Yes.
And it's not the case.
No.
Because essentially there should be no issues with the curve calcs at this distance. This boat in the distance is only 8 miles away, and I'm at 12 feet above sea level right now. So I'm filming it, and there shouldn't really be this much obstruction even on the globe model. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is this inferior mirage on the one in the background is happening right here. So there's the line going through it for the inferior mirage in the one in the background, and yet the boat in the near ground, the inferior mirage is happening on it here.
Excellent. Yep.
And what that shows is it shows that it's actually an angle as opposed to any kind of curvature. It can't be the sea that's blocking it, because we have two separate angles here where it's happening on the boat in the background, so it's at a higher angle on this boat this day, and on this one it's much nearer.
That's perfect. I mean, people need to just look at this and realize that you're being told that it's the water that's blocking it, where this right here disproves that.
Indeed. So you want to talk about the compression? Because I can talk about that for sure.
Sure, yeah. I think it's a major thing that we've just started to see a little bit and start to understand. And I know you've had some excellent boat observations showing, I think, the Stena line. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, bring this up.
Here we go. So here we have obviously the Stena line, and we're talking about that angle now. So in the last thing that I just showed you about this angle, and we get this inferior mirage, we also, when we don't have an inferior mirage and we look at things, we also, on different days, we can get this compression issue that happens. And what we're seeing here is the same boat from essentially the same side on view. I've scaled it left to right so that it fits lengthways. But you can obviously see that there's a compression issue with the hull. Everything above the lifeboat, this orange part here and the orange part here, everything above that is the same angular size. So I think it's on the next slide actually, or this. Yeah, there we go. So here we have, it's the same angular size. Everything above it, out of that very narrow angle, is staying the same size. Now, what I forgot to say here was that there's two elevation heights. We have on this top image, this is an image taken from the boat at 1 foot, and this is an image taken of the same boat from 30 feet. So I'm at two different heights here, and what I'm showing is that when you go lower down, you get this compression issue. Now, that lower down can also be the same as if you were still at 30 feet, but you were looking at something at 30 miles away. You would still get a very narrow angle,
right. So
things will get compressed.
Right. Yeah. People, I don't think fully understand yet that viewing angle, or the angle of attack, is Nathan Oakley would call it, but it's absolutely there, and it makes sense when it's explained to you that that those things at the horizon are going to be squished, are going to be compressed. Go ahead.
Okay. So here, what I've done is I've placed them side by side, and I've lined up to the bottom of the boat, this lifeboat on both. And to the top of this dome thing at the top. So they're scaled correctly from anything that's outside of the very narrow viewing angle. But once you go beneath the boat, you get this major compression going on. You can still make all the wordings out on the Stena line, and you can see the orange band that runs underneath it. So you've got this orange band that runs underneath, and we have the orange band that runs underneath here, and we've got all the words that are still the same. So what I'm saying is we're clearly seeing all of the boat in this image. All of the boat is being seen. It's just how it's being presented to the camera, to the lens. And this is how it's being presented. It's being presented as being compressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you think about it logically, and if you was to push this boat back another 10 miles, then all of this boat would end up in this compression, or this narrow angle. And what you would get is you would get a sliver of a boat as opposed to a nice fat image of the boat here. It doesn't mean that it's going over any curvature or anything like that. It's just getting smaller due to its angular size getting smaller, and also because it's getting into this atmosphere, and the atmosphere is warping what you see, and it's compressing things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard people ask before, why is there no compression left to right? Why do we never see compression left to right? And the reason for that is there's nothing getting in your way left to right. You can spin 360 degrees, and there's no plane getting in the way. Whereas when you're looking off in the distance here, the ground is in the way. The ground and the sky meet, and that creates a very tiny angle as things get further away, and that causes that compression because it's a reduced viewing angle, and eventually things disappear into that angle when it becomes too small for your eye to see.
Exactly. And what I've got here is I've got a series of different observations of these buildings. Now, once I'm at 18 miles at 1 foot observation, these buildings, I shouldn't see them anyway. And this top image was basically taken from 60 feet. I was much closer at 17 miles, and it was basically just to give you an idea of what the buildings looked like when I was to compare them from the observations that I do way down low. So I've got different distances here. I'm obviously getting further and further away. So I start off at 18 miles, 18.3, and I get as far as 24.5 miles away. And I know it's really difficult to see, but there is, you can see that there's the mast and there's this sliver of buildings. And because the design of these buildings, they're quite easy to recognize. You've got a nice white part of the building, then you've got a gap, and then you've got another white part of the building. And you can see this throughout all the images. Now, if you think that you shouldn't even see the buildings at 18 miles from a foot, what am I going to? What would you say if I was seeing it at 24.5 miles from 2 feet?
Right, and just leave it right there. I mean, so people understand that this is why it makes sense to me that people in the past may have thought that the Earth was curved, because they would have seen this with their eyes. They would see things at a certain distance, and then as you go further, it appears that things are getting smaller. It appears that they are going behind the curve. If you're a boat and you're coming into the shore and you're 24.5 miles away, that bottom image, and you just barely see the top, what looks like the tops of those buildings, and then as you get closer, you see that building appear. Well, it makes sense that people would say, oh, that is the building coming up over the curve as I ride towards it. But as you're seeing here, you can tell this is just a compressed image and a reduced viewing angle. As you're getting further away from those buildings, you're actually seeing all the buildings, even at the bottom.
Yeah, I completely agree. And because I've been doing this study now for the past 10 months, so I would say, as I say, I've got 3 terabytes worth of data, right? 3 terabytes, and it's an incredible amount of data that I actually have. And it's good that I can be able to go back and compare things and see them on different days.
Go back one more time. I just want to mention one thing there. That again, look at the tower on the left there, and it would make sense that if you had a globe believer, they would go take the picture from 24.5 miles away, and they would tell you, how come I can only see the top of that tower? Well, you're not seeing the top of the tower. Look at the progression of the images, and you'll notice that all that's happening is everything is being extremely condensed. So somebody can say, oh, you're only seeing the top of the tower there at the bottom, 24.5 miles. But that's not true at all. Go ahead.
Exactly. Well, other people have been doing this too. So we've had Jose, JG Gonzalez, who's been going out. I think he's got your old P900, actually.
He does. Sound killer, yeah.
And he took this image of the boat, and you can obviously see that it's compressed in relation to the same boat. I've scaled it again to size, and you can see the compression. It's half the height of the boat, and from a higher elevation. So this compression does happen, and this is a good image to just show people, because I don't think globers understand this point that things get smaller in the distance.
Right.
Let's give this an arbitrary height of 40 feet. So we know that all these lampposts are at 40 feet, but the furthest one is only perhaps half a mile away, and yet it's half the height of the one in the foreground. Now, that isn't due to curvature, because over half a mile, you're talking what? 3 inches? 3 inches? 2 inches?
Right.
Yeah, but if you was to take it literally on the image, you would say that the amount of hidden, or the amount that's been missing to the curve, so they would say, is at least 20 feet.
Right.
Well, that's it's not the case. It's just perspective. Things get smaller in the distance.
Absolutely. That's a good picture to prove that, yeah, because, you would look at that last post and you would say, oh, it's half the size of the first post, therefore 20 feet is gone.
Yeah, and obviously we know that isn't the case. I don't know if I've got any more images on this. Let's just see. So, oh yeah, this is obviously an image that I took from one thing. I'll open it in something else. One sec, because I want to be able to flip through the two. We'll open with photos. So yeah, I presented this on Globebusters actually, and I remember the first time I did it. I did the presentation, hardly anybody really said anything about it, and then nobody really said anything about it in chat, and I don't know whether whether I'd done something wrong or something like that. But I still go back to it because it absolutely, in my mind, proved to me that this compression is real, and it is more of a compression calculator rather than a curve calculator. So on this day, this is an observation from 1 foot. And I ran up the steps and I took another image in a direct line of sight. So I got behind where I'd been sitting down at the sea and then filmed the same image from 30 feet. And essentially all I did was reverse engineer the curve calc. So I ended up compressing the top image, this image, by 49% because that was the difference between the curve calcs on the 1 foot observation versus the 30 foot observation. And they were an absolute identical match. The two images matched up perfectly.
Wow.
And as soon as I did that, I thought, wow, this really has something. This is something really important. And this is the observation that set me on this compression quest to find out whether or not it was compression that we were seeing. And I think that is what we're actually doing. We're actually seeing compression. And I think when we've got the inferior mirage there, I think the inferior mirage hides the compression. So the compression is behind it. You just don't see it. And then when the inferior mirage isn't evident, you get to see this compression issue. So I think they go hand in hand. And I think that's where this dirty science, I call it dirty science, because when you're showing inferior mirages, the globies love it because they're saying you're showing proof of curvature. And I call it dirty science because not a lot of flat earthers want to go near that kind of science because it isn't pretty. You like to see the pretty observations, the good stuff. And like I say, even this image, this is from an elevation of 1 foot. I think the distance was 20.3 miles. These buildings should have been long gone. They shouldn't have even been there.
Absolutely. What's that distance again, you said?
20.3 miles, yeah. 20.3 from 1 foot.
Absolutely.
You wanted to see the boat, did you say?
Oh, no,
this is a good image.
Yeah, you showed it already. I was talking about the standalone. Oh, this is a great one. Yeah, I remember this one as well.
Yeah, this is a great image because I think this was from Red Pill Philosophy.
I believe so.
I think it was Red Pill. And what we're seeing here, we're seeing the buildings, the building in the distance, and obviously they're an equal height, these floors. And yet, when we get to this very narrow viewing angle, this bottom, 0.5% or maybe even less, I don't know. But we're definitely seeing these floors. But look how small the floor is compared to the width of this one. That is an entire floor there.
Right.
And it's a smudge. But you can definitely see that there's gaps there between two. And you could probably get, if this compression that's happening, and you've got a few waves in the foreground that are just up and down, you could probably fit 5 or 6 floors in that very narrow band just down here.
Yep, I think
because this
so.
is what and you can see it even better on this one, actually. Look at that.
Yep, and as I've always said, and I know a lot of people may not agree with it, but I think that last band of water that you're seeing, it could be, the atmosphere there, that we're just seeing it act as a lens to all the water behind it, which causes it to appear to cover that building. But go ahead.
Okay, so I'm trying to find, just bear with me, the different boats and I've got some trippy boats here, I tell you.
Yeah, and everybody, that's why I recommend Ranty's channel, because if you ever just want to see some observations and have Ranty talk them out, his channel is a great place to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, this is the compressed sea truck. You can see how small the actual hull is. You can see how thin it is and this pointy nose. For whatever it does, it kind of creates this pointy nose. Now, I know that Wolfie did a video of a cargo ship passing in the foreground and the one in the background. And he asked how come the one in the background looked like it was going over or beyond the curvature of the Earth. But what happened was it poked its nose out behind some waves, and we had this very pronounced look like this boat here. And as soon as I saw that, I realised that entire boat in the distance was being compressed, and I could debunk that easily with this kind of footage here, because this boat here is being compressed. All the hull is being compressed, and everything above the lifeboat isn't. So if you were to do a blink test, they would blink test it, and this hull, you'd have the hull way down here, down here.
And that's how they show it, and they say, "Oh, it's just behind the water."
Yeah. I'm not sure what this is. Oh yeah, there we go. That's the observation from, I think, 24 miles this day. It's just crazy. I've got so much stuff on my channel. Just bear with me.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, a 1 foot observation, a 1 inch observation. How's that?
Wow, look at that.
So here we had. I'd got down to as low as I possibly could, or so I thought. I actually dug a hole on another video. In fact, this might be the one that I dug a hole, stuck my camera in it so that the lens was level with the sands, waited for the water to come in, and filmed it. And so I couldn't get any lower, and we were still seeing these buildings at 18.3 miles away. Obviously, this is just a seagull in the foreground floating around on the water. And you can definitely still make out the buildings of Barrow in the background.
And they should be long gone.
Oh, yes, especially from 1 inch.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing that recently happened, Ranty, why don't you tell them about the video that you did yesterday? I think it premiered yesterday, correct?
Oh, yes. Well, what had happened, I'd been in, I'd gone in to listen on the sly about Red's Rhetoric's hangout. Mm-hmm. And of course, every now and then, I have to say something from the sidelines because I'm just like, that's rubbish or whatever. And, as soon as they see me in the chat, of course, I'm the hot topic then. And of course, the chat lights up and they start talking to me. And, so I said, well, have you found any proof of curvature yet? And they said, yes, they had proof of curvature. Of course, Red's had this drone footage, and Sean Hufford was there, and he was eager to show the audience this fantastic proof of curvature, because even though Neil deGrasse Tyson says you can't see curvature from 100,000 feet, these guys reckon they've been able to capture curvature from essentially 140 feet. So,
well, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and show that real quick, and then we'll.
Okay.
If you want to find any other observations, or else, no big deal either way. But I do want to show people exactly what we're talking about. So this is from a hangout the other day, and using it in fair use, obviously, to comment and critique. But just have a listen to exactly what they're going to call proof of curvature, and then I've got some images to show you why that's laughable. But let's go ahead.
Wait a minute.
Because I'll do that tomorrow.
So what they're looking for...
By the way, warning for language and childish tactics, as you should expect from this crew.
Is curvature.
Curvature.
Yeah, I still can't do it. Worth a shit. Okay, so it's curvature.
You will say this answers it. Okay, let's listen to you BS.
And let's clear something up right now that Arwen has tried to skirt around this. He tried to claim it was a fisheye lens. Mavic Pros do not use fisheye lenses.
So Sean, I have a question for you first.
What's that?
Can you please tell me what we're looking at right here?
You were looking at a drone flight at 1,638 feet with the picture actually compressed left to right. And there is your curvature over water.
So basically what we're looking at here is curvature.
Okay. So it is too funny. So what they basically did here is they took an image from a drone showing the horizon of the ocean, and then they squish it and say, now look, there's curvature. If anybody doesn't know, first of all, how your eyes work, or if they don't know how lenses work, he brought up that Arwen said it was a fisheye lens. Well, all lenses are technically fisheye, including your eyes. Your eyes are spherical. Therefore, if you're looking out at something in front of you, anything to the sides is going to be pulled back. Just as an example, let me get this up so I can show you. And then also I want Ranty to describe it because he'll probably do a better job than I did, just in the way that he did on his video from yesterday. But let me bring this up and see if you can see what I'm doing. Oh, yeah, you can. So this is a picture of my house. Ignore the fact that it's a mess. But this countertop here, oops, let me go back over here. Yeah, this countertop here is a granite countertop. And I'm just taking an image of it straight across. And yet when you condense it, when you squeeze it down like they did and turn it like they did, well, what do you know? All of a sudden now the countertop is curved. So I've got another one here of... this is, this took me, a month or so to get this completely straight. This is a shuffleboard that I built, but this is very, very level and straight across. But of course, again, when you condense the image and bring it down, you will see that there is clearly curvature. So now I need to go back and re-level my shuffleboard, obviously, because there's clearly curvature here. Also in this image here, which is of my bedroom, we know that these are straight lines unless you believe the houses are built on curves. And then when you do the condensed version of that, again, you have curvature. And even up here, let me look at the curvature of, hopefully people can see that. Hold on. I want to make sure before I don't think people can see that as well as, let me see, hold on. Let me try and do it this way. Okay, that's a little better. So now you can see that the curvature, let me go back here. So yeah, look at the curvature on the windowsill. It's just ridiculous. This is not, this is how our eyes work, and this is how cameras work. A camera is only taking an image of what's right in front of it. The sides will be pulled down, and when you condense that image, then you're going to get curvature of any straight line. So I dare you today, go with your camera, take a picture of something very straight. You have to be above it, and then when you're above it and you take that image of that straight line and then you condense it, you're going to see curvature just like you do in this one, just like you see here. Just like you see with my countertop. And all I was doing is just taking an image like this. I can guarantee you that this ledge is straight and level. I can guarantee you this table is straight and level. And I can guarantee you that this granite countertop is straight and level. So it's just ridiculous. This is their proof of curvature, that they've taken an image that we know how our eyes work, we know how lenses work, and they've completely and totally muffed it up by saying that it's curvature when you condense it. And yeah, I dare you to look at anything straight and level in the distance and then condense that image and you will see curvature. That's the way our eyes work. But Ranty, let me let you explain it, because I thought the way, and you can show your video from yesterday if you want to, and show when you were panning north to south and kind of give people an idea of what a semicircle does, and how this is completely and totally not proof of any kind of curvature.
Okay, see if I can share my sounds as well. Let's just see if that works. And then when I look in this direction, it's again... Are you hearing that?
Yep, we hear it perfectly.
Okay.
20 miles. 20 miles, 20 miles, you get the gist. However, because we are using a camera, and obviously we are looking it through our own lenses, but for this point it is the camera. The camera, as it looks to 20 miles, dead center, what will happen is that at the very extremities, no matter what kind of camera you use, those edges will slightly drop. That is because it is trying to capture 20 miles, 20 miles, 20 miles, 20 miles, but it only captures 20 miles straight in front.
Yeah, I want to say I'd probably started it a bit further away than I actually wanted to. But what I do is I look from north to south, and I basically show that as you go through looking north to south, I got the whirly of death.
I see that.
Okay, so as I go from...
well, first, let's start out by telling people, just to make sure that they understand, that everybody sees in a circle that
yes.
your eye line, your eyesight, your line of view, your line of sight is the radius of a circle. And the only way that you can see that distance in every direction is to turn around, and therefore what we see is a circle. around us. And if you're looking just north to south, for example, turning from facing north to south, then what you're looking at is a half semicircle. So go ahead, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you was on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and you decided to look a full 360, you decided to turn around and look in all directions, or you filmed it all a full 360 turn, what you would end up with is a 360 circle. That's what you would end up with. You wouldn't have a single straight line. You would be literally filming a circle. And this is what these guys have done. They've taken a snapshot of the horizon, and the horizon obviously is forming part of this circular 360 degrees field of view. So when it's obvious that when they squish it, they're going to get some kind of curvature, because essentially they've taken a snapshot of a circle or portion of a circle.
Yeah, correct. And it's just it's the distance that our eyes can see, and like I said, it's kind of hard to explain, except for if you think of the pictures I just showed you, where if you're taking a picture from above a flat countertop, and the only point that is flat and straight is what's right in front of you. It's what the camera is focused on. It's that center piece of the image. And then, yes, at the end extremities of the left and right, it's going to be slightly pulled back. It's very, very slightly, because it's a huge circle that we're looking at. But when you compress that image, well, then you're going to see what they call curvature. Guess what, guys? That's the globe Earth's best proof of curvature. Condensing images that completely expose that these guys have no idea how lenses work or how eyes work.
Well, this sea wall is starting to form part of a circle as it is right here. It's just the design of the wall, obviously. But if you imagine that you were stood in the middle here and you did a full 360, you'd be surrounded by a circular wall. And if you extend that wall as far as your eyes can see, and then you take an image of that, you're actually going to take part of a circle. You're going to film part of a circle. It really is that simple. It's not curvature.
No.
Even Neil deGrasse Tyson says you wouldn't be able to see any kind of curvature from 100,000 feet. And I have to correct myself, because it was more than 140 feet. I think they said 1,600 feet. So from 1,600 feet, I mean, come on. It was ridiculous. I put the video out, the globe's most pathetic proof ever. And Ranty Globe Lies, because that's just another guy that I've been wanting to expose, Bob the science guy. Seems like they all want to be science guys nowadays, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It makes life so easy. If you're just the science guy, then all you have to do is say science, and it makes life really easy for you.
Well, if you're going to put science in your name, and you're going to be a science teacher, and you're going to be another science teacher, because this is what's essentially descending on us right now, is science proponents, except none of them can science. And I'll say this again, the only people actually doing real science right now are actually flat earthers, because we're willing to go out and we're willing to explore our environment and put the claims to the test. And what we're finding is that the globe is failing at every single hurdle. We've got Anthony Riley, he's doing great stuff. Nathan with the show us the proofs. Where's your scientific proof? They haven't brought any to the table. They can't do it. They have none. No. And people just need to understand that they don't have any science for their beliefs.
No, it's almost like a hope. It's like a dream that they're going to keep pushing, because, again, like I said, flat Earth is the absolute worst thing in the world to them. Many people who might hear it and dismiss it or whatever, but then they kind of look into it and they start saying, I see some of these points. Well, when you're talking about these staunch atheists, these science backers, it's the last thing they will ever say is happening. No matter what. It doesn't matter which proof you put in front of them. It doesn't matter which evidence you show. They're going to turn it to make sure that they feel good and that they can sleep well at night, and that they think they're this speck of dust in the middle of endless space, and that's what they want. At this point, they've already decided that this Earth is not created, which is ridiculous. I mean, get this. I mean, remember in their model that you're talking about a huge explosion some 14-something billion years ago. The Earth formed some 4 billion years ago, whatever. And we've got the sun and we've got the moon in the sky, and they happen to be the same exact size to the point where there's eclipses that happen. Now remember, you happen to live in the one period of time where this is happening on Earth when it could have been any other possibility. It could have been a moon that's half the size of the sun. It could have been a moon that's a little bit bigger than the sun, whatever. But it's exactly perfect. We live in that time. If people don't understand what a sign of creation is, that is a sign of design. It's right there. Or else you have to believe you happen to live in the one little minuscule 0.0000001% of existence where that moon is exactly the same size as the sun, and that we have human beings that have figured out that we live that the universe is 14.54 billion years old. Those things are impossible. The actual probability that you would live on a planet where there is an eclipse like we see with the sun and the moon is so astronomical, it's ridiculous. But again, here's the problem, is they're never going to see anything as being evidence of design. They can't. They've already decided, they've already gone forward with their life, deciding that we are an accident, that we just live and die, that you're not accountable for your actions, and a lot of them love that. So they're going to continue to push the globe model no matter what.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand, honestly. And to be fair, it does seem like even some of the Flat Earth channels, you have to be aware of some of the Flat Earth channels as well, because there are some that, like Awake Souls, for instance, they seem to attack a lot of Flat Earthers, and I think very unfairly.
Do they still have channels? I don't even know.
I haven't heard from them for a while since they challenged me to do something, which I did, and they ran away crying because
they said it was CGI.
I was showing. Sorry?
I said they said it was CGI Ranty, yeah.
CGI wind turbines, because I was showing the wind turbines, and I was showing perspective, and I was showing how they can, how they can appear to be lost to curvature. They didn't like it because in their mind I was showing curvature, and they couldn't process that thought that, okay, well, what's actually going on here, and can I believe what I'm actually seeing? Just the way it is, I've had a lot of flack from flat earthers. I've had a lot of flack from the globers. But I've plugged on, and then here I am on Gerans.
Awesome. Do you have any final observations you want to show, or just a reminder to everyone to go check your channel out in total?
I can show you one last image.
Sure. I think you're up on the live screen now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So this is an image of a couple with a dog in the far right. And you can see that the dog has a mirror image of itself. And there is no curvature between me and the dog. The dog is just a mile away. My camera height was 3 feet. And what we have is an inferior mirage of the dog in the atmosphere. It's just across the flat sands. That's all it was, 1 mile away. The same with the humans. They have an inferior mirage going on themselves. So this is atmospheric blocking. When we look over here at the tower that we showed before, we have this inferior mirage, and we had the truck that was down there, if you remember. Mm-hmm. And again, it was all blocked out by this inferior mirage. So by process of elimination, atmospheric blockage, then we come to, do boats go over the horizon? And my answer to that is absolutely not. What you get is an inferior mirage, and then they just get too small to be seen, and they eventually blend into the atmosphere. And that's what I've always seen with every single one of my observations. This was a time lapse that I did. I've simply just taken a screenshot of the boat partially starting to go through this inferior mirage. I've put the line through it, and if you was to scale this boat, you would see that the hull itself would be down here, but we don't see it. It's blocked out by the atmosphere. Again, the inferior mirage is hiding the bottom of the boat. And this is what I'm seeing. They've hijacked this inferior mirage and called it curvature. And they have no right to that, because everything that I've done over the past year has essentially proved that the inferior mirage is nothing but atmospheric blockage. And what is the cause of that? It could be the narrow viewing angle, Rayleigh's criterion. I know Nathan's very fond of that belief. So that could be the cause, but the effect is an inferior mirage which causes blockage. So hopefully in the next year we may be able to be answering what is the cause of the inferior mirage. So I'm hoping to maybe get some all different kinds of equipment, a barometer, a thermometer, go down there. I'm going to be like a walking Doppler radar, basically, going down to the beach.
Well, remember that globe earthers are telling us, and they've told us for 500 years, if not 2,000 years, that boats go over the curvature, and that's why the bottom disappears first. And what Ranty just described is the explanation that makes more sense. That was what's going on with the bottom of these boats. And when I say it makes more sense, I'm telling you now to go out and watch any videos. Try and find a video of a boat going over the curvature, quote unquote, that can't be explained simply by this atmospheric blockage, which has been shown here. I showed how the Red's Rhetoric video, I think I've seen 2 videos in my life that show a boat supposedly going over. It's the one from Red's Rhetoric. The other one is the 3-masted pirate ship that everyone's seen. And in that one, we can see that the camera is actually lowering. You can see that the water level rises. And in the the Red's Rhetoric one, you can actually see birds ducking and diving inside of that mirage. So again, I've never seen a video of any boat going over any curvature at all. And if somebody sees one, tell me that it can't be explained like this, that you don't see that line of the false horizon.
No, and what we see here is another inferior mirage. We see it absolutely here. This is obviously the boat's a bit further away. It's further into the video. It's 14 minutes into the video, and obviously it's getting smaller due to perspective because it's getting further away. But the inferior mirage is still in the same position. But as the boat goes further away, the inferior mirage creeps up because it's an angle. It's an angle of inferior mirage. As I showed on the other image with the boat in the foreground and the boat in the background, it is an angle. So as the boat got further away, this inferior mirage goes higher and higher up the boat until, I think on the next image is another one. You can see how this inferior mirage is now washing out most of the blue on the boat. Mm-hmm. And basically you wouldn't even be able to say that was a boat. It doesn't even look like a boat. It doesn't resemble a boat at all. And eventually we lose it to the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is lost here. But if I was to bring this up, open with paint.net.
And like you look at that zoomed in image there, and people don't even, they think of the flat line of the horizon. Look at those waves that you're talking about, such a distance. Those waves would be 10 feet high.
Exactly.
Or more, 60 feet high, who knows?
Yeah. Well, yeah, if these waves were just a foot high, for instance, look how much, in comparison to the boat they are, look how high they are. You can still make out the boat. So even when I, with adjusting the contrast, was still able to pick out the boat, but it was basically hidden by atmosphere, and there you can see where the inferior mirage is on the boat. There's the mast, there's the rest of the boat, there's the inferior mirage, and as you quite rightly say, these waves, this wave height between there and there is maybe, let's say a foot, let's give it an arbitrary foot in height, but essentially that's about half the height of the boat.
Right. Yeah, things are going off in the distance, and again, you have to understand that reduced viewing angle, that as things go towards the horizon, that's where you have the tiniest viewing angle possible, and after things are too small to see anymore and their reduced angle is so tiny that it just dissolves into the atmosphere. And we can even see this with sunsets. Look at Dearth's sun fade-out videos, which show when you get high enough and the sun heads off and far away from you, that we see it setting and it basically morphs or kind of dissolves into the atmospheric layer. And these are things going away from you. They're be too far for you to see, but people want to hold on to this belief simply because we were all taught it. And I understand that. I was in class just like you were. I saw the globe at a very young age, and it makes it very difficult for you to shed that belief when everything that you've been told, everything you've been shown, every logo and every commercial and movie beginning, and you always see this gigantic globe. So it's like brainwashing. And when you're shown evidence like this, I agree with you, Ranty, when you said you've shown things a few times and you didn't get really a response. Sometimes it takes all of us, myself included, numerous times seeing something. There's so many times when I'd be listening to Flat Earth Debates, which is from Nathan Oakley 1980s channel, which, by the way, let's keep our fingers crossed. Hopefully, he had some 19 completely frivolous, completely wrong copyright strikes, which hopefully are going to get removed so we can get that channel back, because it was just a bunch of guys sitting around, including Ranty and Sleeping Warrior, just sitting around talking about the flat earth. There's absolutely no copyright infringement there, and yet somebody's trying to take that channel down. But when I would sit around and listen to that show, there were so many times where I would hear you say something or Nathan or somebody, and I would just dismiss it as if, well, that's a dumb way to explain it, or that doesn't make any sense. And then you would say it the next day, and I would say, I still don't get it. And then 2 or 3 days later, it would hit me like, oh, I see what you're saying. So yeah, it does take some times, and that's why, even putting this stuff up today, a lot of people might not see what we're saying. My hope is that after a while, after you kind of get hit it a few times, then you go out and you'll watch and go to the beach, go watch boats. If you think boats go over the curvature and you think that the bottom disappears first, go out, film it, and then you'll see exactly what Ranty's talking about here.
Well, what we're looking at, obviously, this one image sort of like destroys their argument, dead in the water right here, because the bottom of this boat is hidden. The bottom of this boat is hidden behind the inferior mirage, but the inferior mirage is higher on the boat in the background. So
Absolutely.
How can it be the curvature of the Earth if we have two separate reference points for where this inferior mirage is happening? It's impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible.
You can't have curvature here and then more curvature higher up behind the boat up here. It's impossible.
Right, yeah, and that there's more water back there that you just can't see, that it's now become too much of a reduced angle to resolve to your eye, and so what you get is basically, like you said, an inferior mirage, a reflection of the sky, or what's right above it, in this case, the boat.
And literally, I'm going to put it here, that this is sky. That's the sky, and and above it we have sky again. So the sky is being mirrored down on itself again, and it has the ability then to hide the water. Mm-hmm. So if you was to get a theodolite and try to find the horizon right now, you would obviously point it down here. Here, you'd say, okay, there's the horizon. But we know that's not the case because we have this mirror image of the sky that's coming down.
Right.
So people saying that they can use a theodolite to test for the shape of the Earth is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think the main purpose, too, that people need to understand is the horizon. Look up the definition. The horizon is an apparent position. And this is known, that the horizon is not... I think the problem that many people believe, and this is something I believed as well growing up, I think it was taught to us, at least as far as I can remember, is that the horizon was the furthest that your eye could see, and then anything beyond that point had fallen because of the curvature of the Earth. And that's how I was brought up in thinking that I thought that the horizon was like an actual physical location. And the horizon is not a physical location. Even if you look it up, the horizon is the apparent place where the sky meets the ground. Not at all a physical location. And globers this is what I'm saying. What I'm saying there cannot be accepted by globers. No globe earther can say, okay, well, I guess the horizon's an apparent position, because they need it to be the thing that drops. They need it to be the thing that covers boats. They're not going to dare let it be an apparent position. They want it to be a physical location where the edge of the ball Earth is.
Exactly. And one last final nail in the coffin, the inferior mirage that causes this floaty land. So whenever we've seen floaty land, I know Anthony Riley's filmed it from the northern part of the Isle of Man. There's been so many videos out there that have shown floaty land. You was talking about it just earlier on, about the test that you did at the Salt Lakes, was it?
Yeah, the Salton Sea. Mm-hmm.
Yep, and you saw the floaty land again. So in their mind, that floaty land is looming. I've been asking for proof of looming from the globe for the past year. They didn't produce any at all.
No, so has Iru Landucci has been asking for that the whole time. He says, show me something being lifted up from behind a curve to be displayed to you. It's I don't know if you've seen that mirror observation across the 13 miles at the Monterey Bay, where there's a mirror sitting at exactly the water level being seen from 13 miles away from 2 feet or 3 feet high. It's absolutely impossible. On the globe, there should be a 30-foot wall of water that is completely blocking that mirror. And if you're seeing the mirror, you have a direct line of sight. There is no bendy, floaty, looming mirror. It's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And the problem is that because they hadn't actually been able to produce it, and to be fair, flat earthers didn't actually challenge that assertion until I did these series of observations. And what we've caught here is floaty land. This is their typical opinion of floaty land. It's being loomed up. So if Anthony Riley filmed this and they said that's looming, this is looming in their mind. It's not atmospheric blockage, but on the image that I just showed here.
Right. They
where
think
was
that
it?
the line of the ocean is where we see it, and then they're saying, well, that land is being lifted up and displayed for you above the horizon line.
Yeah, and this disproves that. This disproves that. The post in the foreground at 4 miles is always in the same position. I filmed from exactly the same spot, exactly the same height. I did it on a video, so you can check it out. And if there was any looming going on, if that post and the land was being loomed up, then this building in the background would also be being affected by a loom, and it would be in a different relative position to the post in the foreground, and it isn't. So because it's not, that's kind of disproving their argument for looming.
Yeah, and there's so much on your channel. I hope everyone, I think I would love to see Ranty get to 2,000 subs. So if you're listening to this and you haven't yet subscribed, head over there and subscribe, because he does so much video proof. I love video more than I like images, just because I know how easy it is for someone to mess with an image. But video is great, video, and he does so much video. And you're able just to sit back and watch these observations from places I can't go. I can't go look at this observation myself, but Ranty does it for us, and I think that that's amazing, and he does good work. And he doesn't try and only show us the stuff that is dead on flat Earth proof. He shows us all of it and explains it and discusses it, and that's so important, because if you do go out there and you do see something that appears to be blocked, maybe you're going to say, well, flat Earth can't be true because these guys tell me that there's nothing blocked. But no, we're actually telling you that there is obstruction, but that obstruction is atmospheric. It certainly isn't a hump of water between you and distant items.
Yeah, exactly. And I think address it, being able to have a concrete response to what is clearly blockage. We do see blockage. We can't deny that. We can't deny that we don't ever see blockage. And we can't always say that if you zoom in on a boat, you will always pull it back out. I know you've said that before, Jeran, but I have to say I don't believe that, because I believe there will be a limit to. At some point, you are going to encounter that inferior mirage, and you are going to encounter this. The atmosphere is going to play a part with what you see. So
yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, if anything, and what I'm talking about pulling it back is just doing it once will just prove what I just said about the horizon line not being physical, that it's optical. If it was a physical marker at the end of your little ball, then zooming in would do nothing, because everything beyond that has dropped behind the curve. Therefore, zooming in should do nothing. So when you see a boat start to go over the curve and you do zoom back in and you do bring it back, that's your proof that what we're seeing there, the horizon line, is optical and not physical. And then you're right. If you keep watching that boat go further and further and further and further, and you keep trying to bring it back, well, eventually it's going to dissolve off into the atmosphere, and you may even see the bottom always disappear first, because it has the more reduced angle. The top of the boat is going to have a larger angle than the bottom, which is getting closer and closer with the blockage, which is the ground. That's the problem, is that there's something blocking our view, and it's the ground that we're standing on. And therefore, anything going off into the distance, getting closer to that line, that separation, the apparent separation, is going to eventually be too small for your eye to see. And of course, if you have a boat, which part of the boat will disappear first? Well, it's the part of the boat closest to that line where the reduced angle is, and that's the bottom, not the top.
Yep, absolutely. And the Globers, one guy in particular, Conspiracy Cats, he loves to show my work off as globe proof, because he is literally that indoctrinated in his own science religion that he can't actually look at this stuff critically and say, these guys actually have a point. Because there's that much stuff coming out now, and it's not just from me. I might have been the first person to do this kind of work, but other people are taking up the mantle now anyway, so it's really good. So there's so many other new Flat Earth channels that are starting off. What I am finding, believe it or not, is that there's a lot of descending on those channels from the Globers. As soon as they start out, I've seen people with just 30 or 40 subscribers, and they've put a nice video out of proof of Flat Earth.
Oh, they'll attack that,
It's been descended on masse. It's got like 100 comments on there, calling him all kinds of names to try and get rid of him from the flat Earth, and it's like, is this their tactic? Is this what they do?
Well, it's kind of, I don't know how else to describe it, but if you're a globe believer, flat Earth and you're an atheist and you're a science backer, flat Earth is the worst thing in the world. It is the absolute end of everything that you believe. It erases your atheism. It erases your random speck of dust. It erases the Big Bang. It erases these galaxies. So it really does call into question everything, and they cannot have that happen. So when somebody comes out and starts showing some observations, they have to descend on it. They have to call them stupid and an idiot, because it's the only way they can feel better about themselves. I can't picture something coming out that is the absolute worst thing that I can imagine, and then having to go attack it so hard. But that's what these guys have to do, and it took me a long time to realize they're never going to concede. And I think if any globe earther ever conceded any point, I would faint. I don't know about you. I mean, I've never seen it. It doesn't matter what point you make. It doesn't matter if you say, well, we were all taught that, water goes down the opposite way and the opposite, and they'll say, well, it does if everything they will not concede any points, and I know why. It's because if they do concede a point, all of a sudden their entire paradigm, the entire life that they live, is called into question, and that's too scary for many, many people.
I've never heard a glober concede a point ever.
Okay, good. I'm not the only one.
Never. In fact, I'm actually, that's a very small lie. I did actually hear Conspiracy Cats. He actually debunked his own claim. He was on the Non Sequitur show, and he was doing a debate, and it turned out that the guy he was doing a debate with, who was supposed to be a flat earther, was actually a Poe. And so essentially he was actually a globe earther himself, pretending to be a flat earther. And what he did was he talked about earthquakes and how they use these seismographs or whatever to send these P waves and S waves into the ground, and they're able to get a perfect symmetry back, and it can only be proved that this can only happen on a globe Earth. Then when the Poe mentioned and said to him, well, you do realise that if the terrain is different underneath and it's not actually set up exactly how you say it is, so you've got the core and you've got all the mantle and you've got all the layers that they say it is, then you're going to get a different result because, for instance, the S waves can't penetrate through water or a liquid. And he's like, well, yeah, if you put it like that, then that's true. You wouldn't get that. And it's like, well, you just debunked your own claim. You've literally debunked it. And when you think about it, the Kohler Super Bore hole, the
8 mile,
7.5 mile, 8 mile deep, nothing was how they expected it to be. They'd already used seismographs there to check out the land, and they expected to find, granite and then basalt, and they didn't expect to find water.
Right.
They didn't expect to find that. So when they went down, everything was different to what they were expecting. So if you think that kind of technology and that kind of science can tell you what the Earth is made of, then you're sadly mistaken. The borehole disproves that completely because they got it completely wrong. So you can't base you have a presupposition of what the Earth is like and how you're going to get these waves propagated back to you. You can't make that assertion because this disproved that. This totally debunked him, and he debunked himself because he admitted it. He actually did admit it. So, but then he stayed silent right at the very end, just before he conceded. Literally, you saw his eyeballs pop out of his head because he realised what he'd said. But I cottoned onto it. I saw it, and I've got the video up on my channel. You can watch it.
Yeah, it's the one you put up today, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so real quick, shout-outs to the Super Chats. I got one from Glaucoma. Earth is seriously flat, sent a bunch. Globe Defenders have no creator on their doctrine. Let's unite and accelerate Operation Mass Globortions by bombarding children's websites with Flat Earth. Flying Spaghetti Monster equals Globetard. Somebody else says, all flight simulation by NASA are based on a flat plane algorithm software program. No pilots are ever trained on a spinning ball. Very true. Silver Umbrella, thank you for the super chat. And Mighty Matt says, great points on odds of the sun and moon, seemingly same size and eclipse by chance. Yeah, it's completely... Here's the problem is I believe we're put here, and that the observations that this is a created place are all over. They're everywhere. Design is in everything that you see, and this is what the heliocentric model has been used for, is to erase that, is to teach you that, no, you're an accident. That's why they loved when evolution came along, and they say, okay, we can use these distances and we can use these crazy timelines now. And I think it's a bunch of men who want to feel like they are the most intelligent thing that has ever been on Earth. They love that. They think they came from evolution. They think that everything led up to them, but none of those things had intelligence. They are the only thing that came with intelligence, I guess. And they just don't recognize that everything around you is signs of design. It is signs that this was intelligently designed. And here's the thing, you can look at it and accept it and say, yeah, you're right, those are intelligently designed signs. The fact that we have these eclipses, Or you can choose to go their route, which is, no, I'm just going to turn my back to all that stuff and believe in Lawrence Krauss and these guys who tell me about the Big Bang, that they can rewind time, and they know all these things, and they know the distances of the suns or the other, the stars, the other suns, whatever they want to tell you. And here's the thing. You can choose which one you want to believe in. So I just want to be a channel that gives people an alternative view because I've seen what the scientific world tries to do, and that's try and push you into a position where you don't have a choice to disagree. If Stephen Curry doesn't agree we went to the moon, no, immediately you're going to come out and retract that. And the same goes for everything. And just like you said, the second you come out with a video showing some observations or something, the globe trolls are going to descend on your channel to call you a bunch of names, because that's the best. It really is a good method, too, to get people to say, I don't want to do these observations anymore because I'm being called stupid. Somebody go through my comments and you'll see why I don't read them, because I would probably end up killing myself if I listen to some of these people that just have nothing but negative things to say. And the best feeling is getting to the point where you understand now why they have to say those things. And some people eventually realize it, and some people come to it. Some people are very open to truth and to truth seeking. People who watch my channel, people who subscribe to my channel, I believe are truth seekers. And, do we get everything right? No. But are we showing you alternative and then letting you go out, do your own observations, look at Ranty stuff, and see which one makes more sense? And if you still think that you're on a spinning ball with an attached atmosphere, which makes no sense at all, and that if you believe all that, and you can see trillions of miles in the sky at these other suns, and that you're an accident, you can believe all that if you want. I'm just trying to present an alternative, and so is Ranty. Shane's trying to show us his observations and then describe some of the stuff that he's seeing and help us better understand it. So I don't think anybody can disagree that you're doing a great job, Ranty. Appreciate you being on the show. Any final thoughts or words?
Yeah, well, I just want to thank my patrons. One of them, Brandon Toy, he's been there from day one. I did say I'd give him a shout out, so I will do. And could I also shout out another friend of mine? He's struggling at the minute. He's one of the Flat Earth Debates team. His channel is called Arwin. That's ARWIJN. And he does a daily debate show, whilst Nathan's not actually live streaming at the minute. He gets about 100 people watching. But he's struggling to reach 1,000 subscribers. I think he's on around about 930 right now. So if anybody could help out and nip over there and give him a subscription, I'm sure he would absolutely love it.
Yeah, so let's do that. That'd be great if people could do that. I've heard Arwin talking recently about he wants to get to that 1,000 subs mark.
Yeah.
And it's ARWIJN. Arwin, like you said, he's got a morning show that he's doing every day. He's up to like number 60 or something, a morning show. So if you guys want to go over there, subscribe him. Let's get him to 1,000 subs. And Brandon Toy, shout out to him too. He's been there for a long time as one of my patrons too. So Brandon, awesome job. Also want to mention to everybody that Globebusters returns this Sunday, January 13th at noon Pacific. So tune in to check out Bob, myself, Iru, and John again as we get ready for another season. Also, I didn't point out, if you want to send me a postcard or something, I thought it would be cool to get, a postcard from every state would be awesome, sent to Jeranism at P.O. Box 3044, Merced, California 95344. That's also in the description. And if you want to help my channel out without spending any money, if you shop at Amazon, you can just head over there or head up to j.mp/JeranAMZ. If you just type in that code before you go to Amazon, then it will take you to the website. Nothing will change as far as the prices you have to pay, but I get a small percentage, which helps out a lot. And lastly, if you want to join my Patreon, that's patreon.com/Jeranism. And that's it. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to Ranty, to Arwin, but mainly to Ranty. And if you want to help him out with some of his observations, I'm sure it's not easy and costly to gas up and everything, so he could use a few bucks a month if you have it. One of the great things about Patreon, I've mentioned this before, but if you were to give, oops, was that a sound on? Sorry about that. If you were to give, me $1 and give Ranty $1 on through PayPal, well, each of us would have to pay some 39-cent, I believe it is, fee. So we would only get, end up being about 60 cents each. But if you go through Patreon, you can give both people $1, and we wouldn't get that fee because they take it from your bank account at one time, meaning the entire $2. So it's really a better way if you only have $1 and you want to, contribute to maybe 5 or 10 channels. That $10 is best spent at Patreon. They take the fee from us once, so the 39 cents, and then they divvy out that additional $9.60 to the people you choose. Whereas if you gave each of them $1, each of them would only actually get 60 cents if you went through PayPal. So I like Patreon, so check that out if you want. And one more time, Ranty, what's your Patreon address?
It's Ranty Flat Earth. Dead easy. It's the same name as my channel, and it's the same name that's on the title of this stream right now. Oh, and one other shout out: Iron Realm Media is live right now as well. So when Jaren's done, if you want to head on over there, I'm sure they could do with the support as well.
Yeah, head over there. I hope to have them on the show too. They've got a lot of interesting things coming out of Iron Realm Media. They're also on Truth Frequency Radio. So appreciate you guys watching, and thank you all for the super chats. We appreciate it a lot. I remind you guys to do your own research, because when you do, you'll never again believe what you've been taught. Till next time, it's been Jeranism. Peace.